So I'm going to do a quick intro of the individual I have in front of me and how we met, how long we go back. It was year 2016, and I was looking for a job, and this great company called me, called Azul, and they were a startup in Miami. And I went and I met with the two owners, and what a journey it's been. So I have three mentors I have considered in my life, my business mentors, right? And today I'm going to interview one of them, Alex Rodriguez. And there's a reason why I consider him a mentor, an older brother, a really inspiration for my life. And we'll get into it in a second. Alex, how are you, man?
Good.
Thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy traveling the world and, doing cool entrepreneur stuff, but thank you for joining us, man. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Awesome. So Alex, so the morning rise concept came back a few months ago. Me and the other partners were talking. How great would it be that we could interview entrepreneurs outside of real estate and inside of real estate as well, and share this story, because we all know about the victories, we know about the accolades, but we don't know the struggle and the setbacks they went through. So I'm gonna start with your origin story. Where were you born, Alex?
I was born in Chicago.
Okay, awesome. And what part of Chicago was it? Upper class Chicago? Was it the rich part?
The Silver Spoons of Chicago. Now I was born in Humboldt Park, which back then was one of the worst neighborhoods in Chicago for the north side.
Okay, a lot of gangs.
Yeah. So what was that? The 80s, I think, 80s and 90s. Chicago was pretty much cut up into sections by gang neighborhoods. The whole city, any particular portion of the city you were in belonged to some gang or another at that time. I grew up single mom, alcoholic, extremely abusive. So I ended up on the streets seeking for that kind of family love, and that's how I got into the gangs when I was a teenager.
Okay. Single mom, alcoholic. Okay, that must be rough. There's no direction. There's no male figure in your household, correct?
No male figure. My mom did work a lot. She worked 2 or 3 jobs to support us. So she did the best she could, I guess, being a single mom.
What she had, what she had.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so we got in gangs, junior high school, I guess, right? And so would you go to school too, or just gangs full time?
Yeah, so if that's the history you're asking for. So from the ages of 6 to I'd say 13, I was living with my mother. We moved around probably every other year or every year, depending on what the financial situation was. Extremely abusive, verbally and mentally. Family wasn't very supportive. Molestation from male figures in the family as well at that age. Just kind of a rough environment. We got beat pretty severely until at some point DCFS took us away. And I mean, I had run-ins with DCFS of them coming and taking us away over and over several times. And then the last time they finally took us away permanently. And at that time I was about 13 years old.
13.
Yeah, 13. They put me with some relatives for a little while, and then I ended up in the independent living program that they have for youths that want to live on their own, but still be under state supervision. So
that's rough, man. 16 years old, you're okay. And what happened after that?
Between 13 and 19, I was in the system. So I was kind of in the system with the state as a ward of the state, which is basically, you're an orphan of the state, but they're taking care of you, and living on the streets as well, involved in gangs, just drug dealing and gang banging, doing things that teenagers do that are in gangs at that particular time. In order to stay in the program, though, I had to have a job and I had to be in school. So I was always in school, and I always had a job that was paid that they could track. I always did pretty well in school, though. School was pretty easy for me. I have photographic memory it's temporary. It only lasts like a week or 2. I can remember everything verbatim. But you ask, it was great for test taking, and things that interest me kind of stick as well. So I always did very well in school.
Wow. You think if you were born to both parents who had a professional job, you probably would have been a doctor, maybe, or a lawyer?
I don't know about both parents being
Yeah.
the catalyst. I think just a warmer home, I guess, one that was a little more stable
Mhm.
and less aggressive. Although a lot of that has helped shape me throughout my life. So
Can't run away from that.
I
You
don't
don't think?
regret it. I don't
Yeah,
have any remorse for the things that I've been through.
yeah. There's a big debate these days, right? That a lot of homes don't have fathers, and that's the reason why we're seeing the shootings happening. We're seeing a lot of these, crimes and stuff. But that's another topic we could get into on my podcast. We'll do one day. But back to you, Alex. So okay, man. So rest, we're there. All right. So 16, 15. What happened after that?
I was in the program until I was 19. You could stay in the program until you're 21 and then they have an after program that kind of helps you kind of transition. To
Right.
get into the independent living program, though, they put you with a mentor that's supposed to teach you the life skills, how to pay the bills, how to go grocery shopping, how to take care of yourself. The person they put me with, though, had never lived on his own. So he didn't really know how to teach me anything. And my mom did give me the life skills, right? She was always having me go to the courtesy exchange back then. That's how you paid your light bill and your phone bill, and pay the bills. And I always did the shopping because she didn't want to leave the house as much. So she would send me. So I already had all those life skills. I already knew how to shop at Aldi and go to the kind of city as and get the cheaper, meat and bulk and break it down and put it in the freezer. So I was only with him for like 2 months. And then they moved me into my own apartment. I was 16 at that time.
So you got moved into by yourself in your own apartment at age 16.
Yeah, that the state was paying for, or the city, whichever. And they had their own rules, right? Couldn't get in trouble, couldn't do drugs. Like a lot of their rules probably came from me, though. They didn't have a lot of rules when I got in. But every time they caught me doing something, I was like, it's not in the rules. They'd make another rule. Other people in the program be like, look, dude, you gotta chill out and keep making us more rules. I'm like, well, I'm getting by, so
Yeah.
get by them too.
So
So I guess
you found
pretty rebellious.
Say it again, last part.
In that respect, I'm pretty rebellious when it comes to rules.
Yeah, I find that in business with you too. I learned that with you and dealing with China factories. You always find your way around stuff, and that's one thing I learned from you. You never take a no. That's one thing, one lesson. I'm gonna stop and talk to my group right now, guys. Like you said, you'll get stop signs in front of you, right? It doesn't mean you stop completely and say, okay, I'm done. You have to find a way around it. Nothing illegal for the record, but in a legal way, there's ways around things, right? So we have a goal. It won't be always easy to get to your goal. Awesome. Alex, what happened after that? So 16 all by yourself, then what happened?
16 to 19. Then so when they took me away from my mom. There was two of us. It was me and a little brother. And back then, his father, both of our fathers showed up, but my father was also abusive. His father lived in Alaska, and they moved him to Alaska to live with his father. So I flew out there just to kind of like, they try not to separate you when they take you away. They try to keep you guys together. So I flew out to Alaska. I saw that his father was stable and it was a good, loving home. I felt comfortable letting go and allowing them to separate us, even though his father said he would take me, but at that time my father said the same. So he moved on to Alaska and I stayed in Chicago. And then over the years, I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and I flew out there when I was 18 or 19, and the home had deteriorated. The parents were on heavy drugs, crack and cocaine. They were in public aid, and there was 8 adults and 7 kids living in a 2-bedroom house, and it was just bad environment. Wasn't very productive, and my brother wasn't doing very well. I think he was about 16 at the time, 15. And so I moved to Alaska to help him see a different way of life, even though, back then I wasn't living the best life, but I did have a job. I was in school, and that was not the case with him. He was doing horrible in high school, never had a job. All he did was play video games, never leave his room. We still argue about that today.
Yeah.
But in order for me to leave, though, I had to leave the independent living program, which means that I had to leave that support that I was getting from the state. So I wasn't too concerned about that. I just wanted to go and help him, because to me, that was one of the only family members that I had left out of the whole ordeal. So I moved to Alaska for a year, got a job, got into University of Alaska. Pretty calm life compared to Chicago. And it was the first time that I had actually seen life is different than Chicago, right? When you grow up in that environment, you tend to think that the whole world is like that. You know, you're not aware unless you don't know what you don't know. Right? So Alaska was the first catalyst in my mind, like, oh, maybe everybody isn't violent. Maybe the whole world isn't full of gangs, drug area, and shootings and all kinds of things that come with living in Chicago's poor areas. And I stayed there for about a year, and he ended up getting a job and doing better. And then I moved back to Chicago after that. So while I had a little bit of awakening there, I didn't, you know, it didn't settle in. Right? My mind was still, after all the years living like that, I moved right back into it as soon as I got back to Chicago. And then I was there for about a year, and then I had to move to Florida to get away from the gangs for a little bit. And then that was my second awakening, like, oh, living in Miami, it was a different environment. I mean, Miami has its own things, but again, I didn't land there. When I got to Miami, I landed on 71st Street, pretty good area compared to Chicago. It was paradise. You know, it was the poorest area in Miami, but it was beautiful compared to Chicago. There was palm trees everywhere. You know, the bay was right there. You can always go to the beaches, and if you went to South Beach, everybody was hanging out, having a good time. You know, and it wasn't so violent and angry compared to what I was used to. And I was like, oh, these people are just, you know, their day consists, well, my age group, of going to clubs at night, possibly working in school in the daytime. And it was just fun all the way around. Yeah. So I ended up staying here. Right? When I was able to go back to Chicago after everything settled down, I ended up staying here just because it was a much better environment, I think. I didn't stop selling drugs, though, which is how I ended up getting arrested. And I got arrested with 21 charges of armed trafficking. When I was
hold on. Don't just go over that. Come on, man. That's the meat and potato of the story. That's why I had you on here, bro. So hold on. So you're in Miami, South Beach lifestyle. I'm from there, you know that. You got into selling drugs.
I mean, I was selling drugs since I was 15, 14.
Okay.
I didn't.
But now, is it more heavyweight? You're moving now? I mean,
not compared to Miami standards. You had cocaine cowboys down here, right?
Well, they're here.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I can tell you what I got caught with. But yeah. In Chicago, I grew up selling weed, and then we were, you know, in the gangs. We moved to selling more heavier drugs, cocaine. I didn't sell that much crack. I tried it for a little bit. I didn't like the customers. You know, it just didn't sit well with me. I don't think I believed in. People were trying to come give you their kids and hold on to them until I bring money like that. They're just like, this isn't.
Are you serious? They have to give your kids and say, hey, I'll bring right back with the money?
Yeah. Well, that's a number of things. I mean, I'm sure there's horror stories of people, what they do to get that kind of drug.
Wow.
That was one of them. Right? Somebody brought the child. I was like, well, if you hold them, I'll bring you the money, I promise. Yeah, and that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But my dealing in crack probably lasted like 2-3 months, and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. Cocaine, weed, acid, you know, those were more party drugs, more kind of in line with what I felt was okay at the time. Because, you know, they're adults, they're just having fun. This is what they're using, you know, and I can make a lot of money off it. So I kind of stayed in that realm. And even when I moved to Miami, it was the same thing, right? Ecstasy, cocaine, acid, and weed. That's what everybody used. Sometimes ketamine. Before, you know, it got crazier. So that's mainly what I had sold when I moved out here.
Okay. How many years? A few years here and there?
How many years in Miami?
Yeah, you sold drugs in Miami?
3 years.
3 years. So
3 years.
So team, side note, and you'll see and pay attention, his skill set of selling drugs will come back in selling computers, and again you'll see a connection there. So anyway, so Alex, you got arrested.
It's important to keep in mind that while I was doing this, I still had a full-time job, and I was still in college full-time as well.
I didn't know that part. So you had a 9 to 5 and go to school studying and also selling drugs.
I mean, it wasn't the best college. It was Miami Dade, but
still, yeah, you know, it's a decent school.
Yeah, I mean, the habit of being in school and learning was instilled when I was in an independent living program. So I had learned how to have a job, be in school, still be on the street, still selling drugs. Oh, I don't know where I got the energy. I still have a ton of energy today, but I mean, I didn't sleep much back then.
Yeah. 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 So Alex, you get arrested. How many years do you get arrested for?
So I get arrested. I got charged with 21 counts of armed trafficking in various forms of one or another, and cocaine, ecstasy, acid, and weed, and a ton of prescription drugs I had from working at the vet, like ketamine, diazepam, stuff that was household stuff that I used to use to cure animals, because that was fun too. When I got arrested, I was facing double life with 45. And for the first year, I had interviewed probably 47 lawyers. Every single one of them told me I'd never get off the life sentence.
What? 47 lawyers?
Yeah, I talked to everybody I could. I mean, like the girl that was around at the time was calling. She was in a phone book trying to find the best lawyers so I can get the best defense. And
okay.
I talked to 47 of them. I mean, one of the guards told me, he's like, this is the most interviews I've ever seen anybody get. My charges, while they were bad, they weren't extremely bad. I mean, Florida at that time was very, very tough on drug trafficking and ecstasy, right? Ecstasy was a huge problem in 2001 when I got arrested. So they were coming out pretty heavily. And Florida is one of the states that has a high prison population.
Mm-hmm.
Texas and California being the others that have the highest prison populations in the United States. And it's because of the laws that they have enacted. Florida had a 1020 life law. I don't know if they still have it. They probably do. Where if you commit a felony, no matter what the felony is, while you are in possession of a firearm, you get a minimum sentence of 10 years, maximum life, right? Depending on what the charges are. But no matter what, I mean, if it's a class 3 felony and you have possession of a firearm, then it's a minimum sentence. Now those two charges separately get you probation, right? So if I had drugs only, I could get probation. If I had the gun only, I could get probation. But them together give you a minimum of 10 years maximum life sentence, right? So without the gun, I probably would have gotten 2 years in prison. But because the gun was there, and it wasn't in my possession, it was actually in the attic. But the apartment was in my name, so I got constructive possession of the firearm. And the drugs were also in the house, which is what they found. So I was facing double life 45. Every single lawyer told me I'd get life. And at that point, I had resigned to the fact that that's what was going to happen. So I had to mentally accept that, right? I went through 3 lawyers during my 2.5 years of fighting the case. And it was the last lawyer that told me that, there's a possibility that I would get less than life. Meanwhile, thank you. I spent probably $100,000 on my defense, which was all the capital that I had left from what the cops didn't take. And for the first year, every time I went to court, the plea from the state was life, like 1 life sentence. They're like, oh, we'll settle if you take only 1 life sentence. It's like, oh, that's great. So when I die, I can come back and be free, right? So you guys believe in reincarnation because this isn't an advantageous goal for me, 1 life sentence. So naturally, I refused it over and over and over. And the third lawyer I got, great guy, just really fought hard for me. After a year and a half, they got it down to 50 years. And then after another 3 or 4 months, it came down to 25. And after 2 years, they came down to 13. And then after at first I accepted the 13. He's like, look, dude, we got you off the life. You're going to go to jail. There's no way around it, but this is a very good deal. It's very, very low compared to what they can give you. If you go to trial, you're going to go to trial and you're going to get life sentence. And I was like, okay, I'll take the 13 years. And so we're getting ready for court. Court dates are few and far between. And the night before court, I called him. He wasn't there. His wife answered the phone. I'm like, can you tell him that I can't take the 13 years? And I've been talking to her for a year now. She knew me very well. And she's like, oh my God, why not? I'm like, I don't know. I just can't take it. Everything in me. He's telling me not to do it. So just let him know. And he came at 2 a.m, pulled me out of the cell. And he's like, what the hell? He's losing his mind. I fought, and this is very low compared to what you're going to get. And, and he was mad just because he had learned about me now, and he, kind of figured out the type of person I am. Probably one of the reasons why he stayed on, because I had run out of money to pay him, but he stuck by me. And he just, I guess he felt bad because he knew that it would end up horribly if I didn't take the plea. And I'm like, I can't go against my instincts. Every time I go against that court feeling, something bad happens, right? And right now it's telling me not to do it. And then eventually he calmed down. He's like, okay, I'll tell, the judge. And I heard them call my name because I didn't have a bond, so I was in the back. And it took him an hour to come to the cell and talk to me. He's like, I don't know what kind of rabbit's foot you have, but I was able to get it down to 10. And as soon as he said that, everything kind of like felt perfectly right. Like, let's do it. So I ended up getting 10 years. There's a lot more to that, but I ended up getting 10 years. And, credit for the time served. So I had 8 years left, and I finished out my 8 years in prison.
Wow. That is heavy, man. That's insane. 8 years in prison. Guys, a quick note to more homes. Listen to your gut. I was reading a book last night somewhere here on my desk. And the same thing that the person said in it, like often we have our gut, our instinct talk to us. We often ignore it. Like Alex said, if he didn't ask extra and he didn't push back, who knows what would have happened, right? So same thing,
13 years would have happened.
Exactly. So Alex sold drugs. Okay. Came from Chicago, streets of Chicago, gangs, living by yourself, Miami, sold drugs, got arrested. I'm sure jail taught you a lot. When you get out of jail, when did Azul happen?
You're missing the most important part of jail.
Oh, well, please go ahead and share.
So while I was in prison, I got my master's in business administration from MIT through a mail-in program, and a facilitator that was in the prison that I was at that was very, very adamant about helping people better themselves. So he worked really hard to get programs in the system that would allow us to get skills that would help us on the streets. So I got my master's in business administration while I was there through an MIT program. I got every computer certification you can think of, from Microsoft Certified Solutions Engineer to Microsoft Certified Solution Developer, Network Plus, Security Plus, computer programming. I can build an internet from scratch, hardware, software, web pages, server systems, from all of the things that I learned there. And I was also teaching as a mentor other people that were in those programs after I graduated all those programs. I learned sign language, body language. I did drug rehabilitation courses, even though I didn't have any drug issues. I learned in those courses that there's all types of addictions. There's gambling addiction, sex addiction, power addiction. So I learned a lot of how to handle those types of things in those programs. So obviously I took care of myself physically. Prison kind of preserves you in a way where there's no sugar, there's no salt, there's no cigarettes, there's no liquor. Like all these things that will deteriorate you over the years weren't available in those kinds of quantities while I was there. So it helped me become a much happier, healthier human. And while I was there, I had a lot of time to reflect on how I got into this situation, right? I'm not a dumb person. However, I realized that I was around a lot of people that weren't as mentally capable as I was, right? And had less sentences, like they were in a better position. I'm like, well, how am I in this position? I know I'm smarter than this person by a large degree, yet I'm here in a worse predicament. So I started to really look at my life choices and how I got to those choices and the things that happened to me and the excuses that I gave myself that allowed me to make bad choices, and really analyzed who I was as a person and who I wanted to be. So that was a monumental shift in mindset that I did. And I developed these processes of self-evaluation, self-healing that I use still today, so I can get through things a lot quicker. So prison, I mean, while it's not the best thing in the world, it did a lot of good for me in a lot of different ways.
Wow. You took the positive.
When I hit the streets, I was much more equipped to enter the world the way the society wanted me to.
It got you prepared. Gave you time to reflect and better yourself.
Yeah, I didn't have any violent charges. It was more just entrepreneur things that society didn't want me selling. So I had the correct skill set. I just applied it in the wrong way.
Exactly.
Let me figure out the way the world works and apply it in those ways. and see what I can do then.
Yeah. So after that, you're out now. How's life then?
Now I'm out. I'm in the independent living, or not, I'm sorry, not the independent living program. I was in the work release program.
Okay.
Allowed me to go out and work and then come back in after work. And I got hired for a shipping company. In the beginning, they hired me to just call their customers and try to get their salespeople appointments. But after being there for a couple of months, the owner came to me and he told me he wanted to sell to the government, and could I figure it out? Basically, what happened was when the recession hit, his company got hit really hard by a lot of defaults on companies that they had credit to, and they took a huge hit, and sales went down as well. And they weren't able to sustain it without, taking out tons of loans and selling their property, their personal properties, and injecting a lot of cash back into the business. So they wanted a source of income that was steady, no matter what kind of economy was out there. And they felt that the government, no matter what, would always be buying something, right? So I did a lot of research. I found how to sell to the government, and he basically gave me anything that I needed to be successful. Gave me the time, gave me the space, and gave me the support to build this business for him. It was a shipping company that sold shipping supplies. The issue with what his strategy was that when there's a recession, people aren't shipping anything. Right? So even if the government could buy, they're not going to buy as much as they normally would, because they're not going to be shipping that much stuff either. So what I had to do was I had to find some kinds of products that would sell that were recession proof, right? And that the government obviously needed. So I settled on toilet paper, copy paper, and garbage bags and things like that, because I figured no matter what, they would be buying those things. And I basically built a business inside of this business, because they didn't sell those products. They didn't sell copy paper or toilet paper. They had no supply chain. They had no vendors. They had no customers that already bought this to sustain these kinds of sales. So I had to build it from scratch. So basically, I built another business inside of this business that was totally separate. It was a government contracting business for these types of commodities. I found supply chain, even so far as getting suppliers from Brazil and China for certain things, in United States supply chains to accommodate some of the requirements by the government. I got them listed in all the different sites and applications that you need to be able to sell to the government, which is a pain in itself. I can teach those classes now. And I built their business in that area from 0 to 600,000 in the first year. And then the second year from 600,000 to 1.7 million in sales in that particular segment. That added on to their bottom line.
And that's the company you met Jackie, right?
That's the company I met Jackie. And meanwhile, I'm still in prison. Yeah. Right. I'm going back and forth to work every day, when I was doing this. So that gave me the kind of like the springboard I needed to know that, okay, even after this, I'm out, kind of, not all the way, but I had the skills necessary to build a business. I wasn't thinking of just going out there and building a business. I just thought I'd be successful because network engineers make minimum $120,000 a year. Right, I could have just went and become a network engineer easily, and jumped into a job that made $120,000 a year. But I saw that this was working, and I was doing that for a little bit. When I got out, I moved over to working for them. The company wasn't the best at giving payout. They knew the advantage that they had hiring ex-cons, and they used that to their advantage when it came to pay. So I wasn't making that much. Wasn't happy about that either. So I started selling some things online on the side just to supplement my income. That's when I started working with Chris, selling Android tablets and TV boxes on Craigslist and Amazon and eBay. And that business kind of took off. And then when Microsoft wanted to get into the low-cost mini PC market, I jumped on that because all my certifications are Microsoft certifications. And I saw huge opportunities for low-cost Windows PCs in the world, because I knew that everything was getting smaller, and that with IoT coming, edge computing, and all of the things being connected, they need mini PCs or small computers to connect the world. So I jumped on that bandwagon.
Yeah, this is one of them. This is his product that he designed. It's called a Byte 3. Is it Byte 2 or Byte 3?
That's the Byte Plus.
Byte Plus. Okay, this is a mini PC. You can attach this, and the antenna broke. My kid broke in the back. You can attach this to your monitor, your TV, and have a keyboard, and you can, for business purposes, you can do a lot with this. This was my job as director of marketing his company to market this. But anyway, this is a Azul product, guys. Go ahead.
It's one of the bigger ones, the little ones.
Yeah.
I have, little
Small
stick.
one. Yeah.
So I got into that. I was able to support myself and another person with the money I was making. So I ended up leaving the shipping company as an employee and contracting the work out that they had for that department to my company. So we still did the work for them, but they were paying our company to do it. And it wasn't just me. Now I had people that could do it. And then I started Quantum Suppliers, which was what the first company's name was. And we started selling these things online and moving more into the Windows side and less from the Android side, because the market was shifting with the Fire Stick coming out and Amazon doing their things and taking that market. And then just fast forward over the years, we've just been scaling that business. And now our business has morphed over time into all different kinds of things. We started with Android. We ended up moving out of Android into Windows. And meanwhile, Androids were going down, Windows was going up. And this was the consumer market we were in on Amazon. 99% of our business was Amazon business. And that kind of changed over the years, and we moved into the B2B space. Meanwhile, Amazon allowed Chinese manufacturers to directly import into FBA warehouses, which killed hundreds of American small businesses that were importing from China and selling on Amazon. And then Amazon gave that business directly to China. So they basically cut out a bunch of small business American middlemen and went directly to China. We pivoted to B2B, so we were able to stay open. And our B2B space has grown hand over fist over the years. Now only, I think, 15% of our sales are Amazon sales.
15%? 1.5?
Yeah, 1.5.
Yeah.
So I knew that would be a problem at some point way back when you were still there. And I made some initiatives to shift that business out of Amazon, or continue, not to shift it out, but to grow it outside of Amazon. We still kept our Amazon sales what it was, but to grow it outside of Amazon. So if something happened, the company could survive. And it did happen like 4 years ago. Amazon ended up closing our account for 2 months, and I lost $500,000 in sales for no reason at all. Amazon used to be very business friendly. It's not at all anymore. So we shifted into B2B, and then we made another catalyst when we opened our factory in China to get a little more vertical. And now I have a factory in China that makes our computers, but also makes computers for companies like Zool in other countries. And that's where we are today.
That's amazing, bro. This is all, so I met you in 2016. I became your director of marketing until 2018, famous story of mine. And then now, how many years has it been? Azul's been open, Azul itself.
Azul,
Quantum Suppliers.
I'd say about 8 years.
Okay.
Total with Quantum Suppliers.
8 years. That's what I'm about to say. Guys, they have an amazing office down in Miami. If you're ever in Miami and you want to check out their headquarters, huge headquarters, amazing office, amazing staff he has. Alex is big into culture. Alex, as we're running out of time, so I'm going to recap and then have some people ask some questions, and then bring up some other points I have in my mind. Mom, alcoholic, single mom, rough life, 16 by yourself, Alaska, Florida, school, work, jail, out of jail. This company that had a program with you, you took them from 0 to 100. They didn't give you anything back, but a lot of experience, right? Jail, I think, and there's a jail story, it's a huge story. I don't have enough time for that. I think jail, he has many other stories that I can bring value. Maybe do a part 2 of this. You're selling Azul, you're selling out of your trunk too, before the office came, right? I mean, online, and right? Wasn't that story still? I think the Android sticks out of your trunk with George?
A closet and then a trunk.
Closet. Yeah, okay, closet. And then you open this one small office where I started, and from that you open this huge multi-million-dollar office. Alex, so I want to give some takeaways to my agents, our agents here. What do you think the 5 things that you say, hey, Mike KB, reading books, having a mentor, or whatever it is that was for you, that you can say, hey guys, write this down. This is what helped me. This may help you.
I don't know. I mean, that's a loaded question, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
for EO, I do EOA, which is, we're coaching entrepreneurs to get their businesses to scale. It depends on one, the individual, because we all don't do things the same way. We have to go off the strengths that we have. Two, the type of business that they're in, right? There's different tactics and strategies that you have to use. I don't think there's one set cut formula that works for everybody other than persistence.
Oh, okay.
So, I kind of do those on a one-on-one when I talk to people. Okay, let me find what your strength is and see how I can apply things that I've experienced and give you those experiences, and you kind of take that and do what you want. My business has morphed several different times over, and the strategies that I use depend on the situation that's in front of me.
Yeah. I think knowing you for about 6 years now, I think also like you read a lot of books.
Yeah, I'm constantly educating myself. That's one of the things, if you listen through the whole story, I've always done was I was always learning. And even today I'm still learning. Right? I'm part of Birthing Giants. I'm part of EO. I'm part of another smaller organization out here in Miami called Epic Talks that are constantly feeding me information on new things. I mean, I have a $10 million company today. 5 years ago, I had a $2 million company. And in order to do $10 million things, you have to learn and grow. $2 million things only work for $2 million things, right? So you have to learn and grow. And if I ever in a place where I can't help the company grow, I remove myself to a person that can.
So guys, you heard that? In sales, in real estate sales, if you want to be a $10 million agent, that's one thing, but you want to be a $20 million agent, you can't do the same things you do as an agent who sells 5 million, 8 million, 9 million, to think and pray, I'm going to sell 20 million. The habits, the thought process, the day-to-day for a $20 million agent in our industry is different from a $2 million agent. And he's 100% right about that. As I climbed in my career in real estate. Okay, so persistence, you keep I'm just taking my notes here. I share the notes with the team. You keep educating yourself, right? And that's important. And I know you do. Guys, by the way, Alex keeps saying this thing, EO. EO is an organization. It's called Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a huge group, global, and you have to qualify to be part of it. These are world-class entrepreneurs that have to have a network of this much and have a revenue of this much, and right. That's pretty much the criteria, right?
That's the beginning. They look very deeply at culture, who you are as a person, kind of value that you believe in, the things of that make your core.
Yeah. And I remember he signed up this right in front of me. You're right, nervous sitting in my office. They're talking to me about it back in 2016, and they accepted him. And ever since they accepted him, I see a huge difference in you. I call you for advice here and there. Okay, so you're saying, look, not everyone's different. Everyone's strengths are different, right? So what does that mean, team? That means like if you're not the best cold caller, you know what? Then maybe invest money in getting a cold caller company out there to call on your behalf, whatever it is, right? If you're not best in ABC, then find a solution to be that, but do what you do best. Okay, Alex, what else, man? What else can give us a takeaway today?
I don't know. I'd probably give you better answers than the questions.
Yeah. So, for example, I know for me knowing you, you had setbacks. Even when you made it in Zoom, COVID time, we were talking, and that was a major setback. Like, what made you survive that, man?
I mean, there's always setbacks. I have setbacks today, right? I got patent troll infringements. I got lawsuits that we've never dealt with before. These are all the things, cost of doing business, stuff that you've never experienced. Last year alone, we had 2 or 3 different lawsuits of things I've never experienced before, and maneuvering through that and figuring it out and surviving it. COVID, when that hit, it's all about reaction time and planning, I think. So we were very quick to assess the situation. We looked at what the bottom.
Sorry, Alex, what did you say? Reaction what?
Reaction time.
Okay.
And decision making.
Okay.
Right. When tragedy hits, you have to react quickly and you have to make fast decisions. Hopefully good ones, because the wrong ones will kill you.
Right.
Or your business. So we looked at, okay, what's the worst possible outcome? What does that look like? And if that was what's going to happen, how do we survive that? What could we do to survive that? We knew that sales would go down. We knew that income would reduce quickly. We knew that supply chain would be an issue. We looked at all of these different things. And meanwhile, we opened our factory in China 1 month before COVID hit China. So we had to bootstrap that factory. It all came from our own capital. We didn't take loans. So it was a very scary time for us because, we had probably $800,000 of capital that normally is sitting in our cash flow, move out of this company into another company. And now we're very strapped for cash. So what we did was, we brought the whole team in and we had a meeting and said, here's the reality of the situation, right? Every single person that works here was in that meeting. And we said, these are the ideas that we have to survive this, right? We know that it's going to go down to this. We know that we can't afford to pay everybody full payroll through this process. We don't want to lose anybody. So here are the ideas we have. We took people off payroll. We allowed them to go and apply for any kind of help they need. We gave them very few hours if they wanted those. We moved everybody to part-time that would accept it. The people that couldn't, that needed to go work full-time, were allowed to let go and with letters of recommendation and go find a job if they could find one in that environment, which was very difficult. And we did everything we could to support our team with keeping cash flow in the company to make sure the company survived. So we weren't looking at trying to grow anything. We were just looking at pure survival mode. How do we get to the end of this so that we can get back on good track? And we were able to survive COVID that way. Don't get me wrong, our sales went down 70% overnight.
70%.
Yeah, we were as low as 20% of full sales by the middle of it. And, we made it through. We probably lost, I think, $700,000 or $800,000 through the COVID times. But the year after that was our best year in sales ever. And the year after that was our best year in sales ever. So we came out of it on the opposite side pretty good. We're doing the same thing now, getting ready for the recession that we believe is coming.
Yeah, we talked about last night. You think recession is coming? How hard, how strong, we don't know, right? But something's going to happen, right? It's a given. Yeah, I think it's already happening. I think it's already happening.
You make something, the harder the fall,
Yeah, you're right. That's true. Team, I'm going to open up the forum for the questions. Edison, Rafaela, Michelle, any questions? Someone asked a question, by the way.
Yeah, I saw it. We have real estate investments. So my partner, Julia, does all of our real estate investments. She's a real estate broker. That's been her life's work as well. She's bought and sold fix and flip properties for years. She was in Louisiana after Katrina hit, buying. I think she probably rehabilitated like 30 or 40 properties out there in a 3-year period after those disasters happened out there. So she manages most of our real estate investments. We have the building that we have as a company here. And then we have some personal rental properties and houses that we use. And she's the one that really manages the real estate side of our organizations.
Awesome. Anyone else? Anything, guys?
Yeah, I was just curious on the recession note, because the job market is really strong. What points makes you think that we're going into a recession?
The job market is really strong, but if you really look at the layoffs that are happening, Goldman Sachs just laid off 3,500 people today, right? Every tech company that's major laid off thousands of people. Facebook laid off, Amazon's laying off. I think last year, some point when the property started to shift, all of the major banks, Wells Fargo, Chase, laid off thousands of employees. Those people have to go somewhere, right? And that capital has to go somewhere as well. Every entrepreneur I know, and EO and all the other organizations, is pulling in their capital. Nobody's buying right now. So these people that are really investing all the time aren't investing. What happens to those deals? And they're pulling in cash and they're holding cash. And the reason they're doing it is because they know that once a recession hits, everything that they wanted to buy is on sale, right? It's like blood in the streets, 60, 70, 80% off. You're going to get things when a full recession is in play, but you need to have cash in order to do that. I see a lot of signs of that. And then just basic economics. Studying business administration, you learn all about macro and the microeconomics. And I pay very close attention to what countries are doing to prop up their economy. Not just us, but in China. There's a huge, I don't know how much you know about China, but there's a huge issue in China where when they were making tons of money, China's people were migrating into major cities and buying properties, right? So these developers had gotten to a situation where they were pre-selling properties. So in China, there was so much demand. The developers had gotten to a point where they could get people to pay the down payment for a property and start paying a mortgage on the property before they even started making them. And these people were paying monthly mortgage payments on a property that hadn't even begun construction. So what these companies were doing was they were taking that capital and they were starting new projects over and over and over and counting on the old capital that was coming in from all these mortgage payments to fund all of these things. And it's generally a Ponzi scheme, right? And that ended up collapsing. And now, so the government finally stepped in. Remember, China hasn't had an experience in this yet. They didn't have rules to stop that. They finally stepped in and put in the rules, and it was so catastrophic that they had to say, okay, we know what you're doing is wrong, but if we stopped it, then everything would fall apart, right? There's huge protests in China with people they all stopped paying these mortgage payments because they didn't see anything happening with these properties. Some of them weren't even begun to be built yet, and they've been paying mortgage for 2 years. So all of that stuff kind of has an effect on all the economies. Supply chain, becoming an issue when there's no supply chain, inflation, all of these things point to a recession. And I think it's not a matter of if, it's just a when it will happen. In my experience, the longer you hold something up that's not real, the harder it falls.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Good question. Good point. Anyone else?
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to point out something you said, brother. Hey, first of all, thank you for coming on our weekly show here.
Yeah, thank you.
So KB asked you a question about, what kind of nuggets can the agents take away? And you said there's no magic button, there's no recipe, but you did say something that I think could be applied to everyone, which is persistence. That one's huge for any entrepreneur, any business person, whether you're a realtor, doesn't matter what you do, selling tech, doesn't matter. Persistence is really what's going to get you to be successful. I think you had your back against the wall. You were in prison. Your back was against the wall, and you had no choice but to fight back.
There's always a choice, right?
Right. There's always a choice, absolutely. But it's either you curl, you do your 10 years, and that's it, and you come out and then you repeat the same thing, or you're like, you know what? No, I'm gonna fight back. Right. Life is, punch me in the gut, but I'm gonna fight back. I'm not gonna let life defeat me, and you follow it up with persistence, So a lot of agents, a lot of us, we get discouraged when we don't see the results that we want. We're fighting, we're fighting back. Our backs are against the wall. Maybe some of us are going through, a split with our spouse, or maybe some of us are going through, money problems, whatever, right? So it's like you have a choice. It's either you curl up, right, and you let life defeat you, or you fight back. But keep persisting. And I think that's a good thing that you mentioned, man, because the persistence, I believe, from what I'm hearing you say, is what's gotten you where you are today. Is that you didn't give up, man. You just kept going.
Yeah, I think, don't get me wrong. I mean, I understand today that why the things that we're doing are wrong and why society isn't accepted, right? So I'm not upset about being in prison. It's one of the first questions they asked me: do you think this is unfair? Which I thought was surprising when I got to prison. Do you think what happened to you is unfair? And that question stayed with me a long time, and I really thought about it. Is this unfair? Am I a victim of whatever it is? No, and I could have allowed those excuses to say, yes, this is unfair, or because I was abused, or because this, because that. But all that is just excuses of holding you down, right? The reason persistence is important to me is because I believe that no matter what you're trying to achieve, when you hit roadblocks, there's always different ways to go around them, right? People figure it out. What differentiates entrepreneurs from the rest of the world, we fail hundreds of times, probably per day. We just persist and say, okay, this didn't work, let me find a different way. This didn't work, let me find a different way. This didn't work, let me find this way. And I can give you a quick example. When I first got in prison, I was learning the economy of prison, because I didn't want to sit there starving all the time. And somebody told me, oh, you should sell rolled packs of cigarettes, because you have to roll your cigarettes in prison if you buy the cheaper ones. So I borrowed some stamps, and I got this pack of cigarettes, and I rolled it up, and I tried to barter that rolled pack of cigarettes for an unrolled pack of cigarettes, which would help me make a profit. And I realized that, not everybody could afford to pay that little fee of the rolling. You know, everybody was scraping by too. So I ended up selling the cigarettes individually for a nickel or 10 cents a piece. And everybody would do that because everybody wanted to smoke and support their habit, but they didn't always have enough to buy a pack of cigarettes. So they'd buy 1 or 2 or 3 here, and I'd sell 2-3 packs a day. And within a month and a half, I had more commissary and cigarettes and coffee and soups and chips than I knew what to do with, right? And then I took that and I created a store where I would rent it, 30 cents back on the dollar. And then from there, like I constantly found different ways, right? But ideally what the goal was to be able to support myself, and there were roadblocks in that process, and I had to learn my ways around it. Even with the business that I have now, something came up and I would have to change strategies. Amazon decided to let China come in. That completely destroyed $3 million in sales overnight. We were a $5 million company. I had $5 million bills. So we had to figure out, and it's all persistent. Like there's always a way to achieve your goal. It may not be the way that you thought it would be, or your opportunities, would come out of that adversity. You just have to be willing to keep going and figure out the ways around it.
Well, it's about pivoting, right? You have to keep evolving. Like you mentioned another thing too, brother, is that when you said that, during the pandemic and then Amazon came out with a Fire Stick or something like that, you mentioned something along the lines where you had to kind of now pivot with that.
Yeah, it's pivot or panic. Pick one.
Pivot or panic. Write that down here.
Right. So like right now we're going through the shift. You mentioned there's a recession. So that puts a lot of panic into people's minds. Like, oh my God, a recession's coming, which could be a good thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like to there's opportunities everywhere, And you just have to now just pivot and be an expert in that market. What's being sold, short sales, foreclosure, and then when they become an expert on that,
I mean, generational wealth can be created in a recession. One, because you're getting a lot of things a lot cheaper than you would if the economy was doing very well, right? And especially in real estate, I think there's huge opportunities at the bottom, right? That's what everybody's looking for. The thing is, you have to be able to buy. So as investors, you can see a lot of people have stopped using their capital because they're waiting for that. They're going to have the money to make it through recession. Rich people they're not afraid of recession, right? They actually get excited about it because they know, okay, I'm not going to make more money right now, but the stuff that's going to come out on the other end is going to be 5 years of what I would have made in a healthy economy.
Yeah.
Sorry, that question. How are you preparing for the recession?
How am I preparing for the recession?
Also, you have any strategy on real estate too?
So my partner is dying to buy some real estate. We've had heated arguments about it right now. I will not. I don't allow it. And I'm in Miami, so it's even worse here. Like the economy is, the real estate's going down in other states in America, but not here. Here it's going up because of the influx of New Yorkers and people from California.
Yeah,
and
same thing here. Yeah.
And Miami's a tech hub right now. It's crazy. But we can invest anywhere, right? And she's like, well, there's good deals in Georgia, and there's good deals in North Carolina, and there's all these things. And I'm like, I don't care what you see right now. In January or in July or August of this year, it's going to be cheaper. So just wait, right? And we even looked at selling this building. We bought this building for 1.5. I told her I would entertain prices. I didn't want to sell, but I'm open to hearing what people say because we're in a seller's market, right? So if my building appraises at 3 million in a seller's market, I can get 4 or 4.5, depending on what people will do. And that's exactly what happened. They came in and said, well, we can get 3.7 for it. I only had the building 4 years. And I was like, well, that's a good price, but it appraises for 3.6. I want 3.7. So I said no to like 5 or 6 offers. And then they came back at 4.2 and 4.5. And the highest offer we got was like 4.7, I think. And at that point, she was like, we got to sell. I'm like, we're not selling. I just wanted to hear what they're, I don't think it's an advantageous time for us to sell. I have a warehouse. I'm in a multi-zone district. I can pretty much do anything I want with this building other than sell cars. So it's a very, very valuable asset here in Miami that's going to continue to grow. So I think I can get 8 or 9 or 10 million if I hold the building for 4 or 5 years. And we're owner occupied. There's no reason for me to sell it. So on the real estate investing side, I'm heavily holding in capital to wait for that recession to get in because I know it will be cheaper. 2, I've pulled in all my lines of credit and I've taken the money out of the line of credit and I've put it in a different bank because, a bank can pull that line of credit anytime they want. And if you have the capital in your bank account, they can easily take the money out of your bank account. So I keep that capital in a separate bank entirely. And right now it's just sitting there and I'm paying the interest because I want to have access to that liquidity. So, you know, I've pulled in every thread on how we can get capital into the company, and we're just holding cash heavy right now. So that's what we're doing to prepare for the recession.
Well,
Good, thank you. Good
thank
advice.
you. Good question, Olga.
So I have one question.
Please.
Usually, I was actually pretty speechless today. Your story is very, you've been through a lot. So thanks for sharing that with us. But pivoting off this last question, you mentioned a line of credit. Would you use HELOCs as well to take advantage of the recession?
What is HELOCs? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar.
Like home equity, when you have equity in your home.
Oh, home equity. Yeah, I mean, if I had to, I would. I tend to go the opposite way. I prefer to pay off the houses quicker and just have the capital sitting there. Like, you know, I have a property that we bought for like $114,000. We've been paying payments for 5 years. You know, the recession came, or the pandemic came. We were able to defer those payments, which I took advantage of. And then I look at it and I owe $116,000 on it now. I'm like, well, I bought this at 114. And then I started really looking at how that capital is used, right? And I don't get me wrong, the house appraises for $279. I could sell it right now, come off pretty nice off of it. But, you know, if you keep a 30-year mortgage on that house, you're paying $250,000 for it, right? I'd rather pay off the $100,000 house and get the income that's coming in and put that back to work if I have the money sitting there. Right. So if there's $100,000 sitting in my bank, I'd rather pay that property off and have that property generating income as opposed to it costing me and me paying a larger rent at the back end of it. If I don't have the capital, then fine, I'll pay the monthly payment. And there's a renter in it, cash flow positive by, I think, like 40%. So we're happy with it. But in the event that we need that capital, if I continue with that strategy, then I have 10 houses that have $100,000. I have access to $1 million line of credit by pulling that equity out. So that's my last resort, right? I tend to park my money in real estate if I can park it anywhere and it's just sitting. If it's not working, I am a person that I can make more money with capital than if I park it in real estate. So, you know, me and my partner often clash on where to keep that money. She's like, oh, we can take $200,000 and put it in these properties. I'm like, yeah, but if you give me $200,000 in a year, I'll have $400,000. And you're not going to do that with a property, right? But for the long-term investment and, you know, our retirement plans, that's what we end up. That's the strategy, is parking money in real estate that's sitting still, right? If I have $1 million and I'm only using 800 constantly and that 200 is never being used, then yeah, no problem parking real estate. But for the most part, I tend to think that I can move and make better capital with cash flow than the real estate. So I use the real estate and the equity that we have in there as a last resort. If I don't have lines of credit, if I don't have access to capital, then I will go and tag those properties that we've invested in and pull the home equity line of credit. If that's all I had, then by far, I would definitely do it.
Okay.
I believe in my skills as an entrepreneur. No matter how far down I go, I will always come back up. So if I get to zero in capital, I was there before and I made this. So I know I'll make something again in the future.
So then real estate is like your long-term investing plan, and then you have like your companies, and then you think about stock and all of this. Is that like your multiple streams of income?
I think stock would be the last thing I invested in just because it's so slow. Unless it's like risky, right? But for that, you have to watch it all day long. You can make a lot of money in the stock market, but it's buying and sells in quick transactions and large amounts of capital. And
so real estate over stocks for you?
And long-term real estate over stocks for sure. But not in Miami because, you know, it's flooding here.
That's debatable, Alex. I heard that book that came out, man. We'll talk about that in the podcast.
No, I've been walking around in 2 feet of water.
You think Miami's gonna get underwater, bro? You think J-Lo's house is going to go
all
underwater?
of it, but you know, parts of it.
Daddy's house and Alex Rodriguez from the Yankees. Team, any questions? So from me to wrap up quickly, I'm gonna share something. Alex was there for me at a time where I was so lost, and I'm gonna keep that part of me. Some Edison knows that story, but I was so lost. I had a personal issue going on in my life, and I was employed by him, and he was there for me multiple times. He's the company that I always talk about. Before my stroke happened, I was working for him, and he did me a big favor. Actually, he actually let me go after it. And looking back that time, I hated him. I'm like, dude, if you're my boy, like, what are you doing? Now, looking back, it was the biggest favor he did for me because it changed my life. And so I owe you a lot, man. Like I said, you're one of my mentors. I love you, brother. Thank you so much for jumping on, man. And I'm gonna come see you in Miami with the podcast, bro. Well, that's gonna be a long conversation. We're gonna go into details. Hey guys, quickly, I'm gonna give you a plug to Azul.com. 1 second, let me share the company. Amazing products, guys. I know Christmas is gone, but any gifts, I'm gonna share it here. And here you go. It's bringing me back to log in the website. My computer still remembers it from working with you, man. Hold on 1 second. Let me just share the screen quickly.
That's because you put the wrong address.
Yeah.
Remember, we bought the domain.
Oh yeah, that's all.
Buy domains. You want a tip? Buy any domains you think you're going to use.
Can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
That's his company. That's it.
Any domains you think you're going to use, because if not, you'll pay a lot for it later.
Azul.com.
Cost us $5,000.
But the domain cost you $5,000?
It's actually pretty cheap. The only reason I bought it was because people in EO told me it was cheap, and that they would buy it and sell it to me later for more if I didn't get it.
That's just crazy, man. And I remember these companies. I know some of them I got involved with these guys. This is awesome, man. Alex, I'm so proud of you, man. Your story is, I mean, I think I didn't touch on many of those things with a limited time.
You helped a lot with that. You're still the best person we ever had, one of our reviewers.
Oh, thank you, man. Well, that means a lot. Thank you so much. Means a lot to me, man. Say hi to Julia for me. And when you're in Orlando, come see us, man.
Yeah.
Can we follow you? You have Instagram, Alex?
Yeah.
He's already on it, though. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm hardly on it. My LinkedIn is better.
Oh, okay.
I'll share with you guys. Alex, is it okay if I share with them?
Yeah, for sure.
But when he does share, it's pretty cool stuff. He's either on what's that thing, the Running Man show that happened in the West Coast. You were Running Man recently, weren't you? Or last year?
Burning Man?
Yeah, Burning Man. I don't know. Yeah, I'm out of the loop, bro.
Wow, you go to Burning Man?
Yeah.
You might like it. I think it'd be
are you still selling drugs?
No, I stopped.
Yeah.
I never made as much money selling drugs as I do selling computers, honestly speaking.
Really?
You set up a tent. You'll make a lot of money there in Burning Man.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Burning Man is a great self-awakening experience. Like there's no internet, there's no phone. You're just very present with yourself and your mind there. So I would recommend
ayahuasca, you know.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do ayahuasca there. There's too much going on. Ayahuasca, you got to go to Peru, man, and do it with the pros.
Or Thailand or something.
Yeah. It's a 2-week process. They put you on a special diet. Like they make sure you get a good, thorough experience.
Never done it
Either. I've heard a lot about it though.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Yeah. Go ahead, Edison.
No. I'm saying no. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank
you.
You.
For having me. I hope I was able to help you guys in some way or another.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. We'll be in touch, man.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks, brother. Love you, bro.
Good night.